Culture. The definition of culture. Culture is an umbrella term which encompasses the behavior and norms found in human societies as well as the knowledge, beliefs, arts, laws, customs, capabilities, and habits of the individuals in these groups. Let's look at how culture originated and how it is passed on. Environment. The word culture derives from the French term, which in turn derives from the Latin term colere, which means to tend to the earth and grow, or cultivate and nurture. It shares its etymology with a number of other words related to actively fostering growth. The term culture appeared first in its current sense in Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries to connote a process of cultivation or improvement, as in agriculture or horticulture. In the 19th century, the term developed to refer first to the betterment or refinement of the individual, especially through education, and then to the fulfillment of national aspirations or ideals. In the mid 19th century, some scientists used the term culture to refer to a universal human capacity. Language. The origin of language, understood as the human capacity of complex symbolic communication, and the origin of complex culture are often thought to stem from the same evolutionary process in early man. Evolutionary anthropologist Robin I. Dunbar has proposed that language evolved as early humans began to live in large communities that required the use of complex communication to maintain social coherence. Language and culture then both emerged as a means of using symbols to construct social identity and maintain coherence within a social group too large to rely exclusively on pre human ways of building community. For example, grooming. However, language is now understood as the particular set of speech norms of a particular community are also a part of a larger culture of the community that speak them. Humans use language as a way of signaling identity with one cultural group and difference from others. Even among speakers of one language, several different ways of using the language exist, and each is used to signal affiliation with particular subgroups within a larger culture. How culture is passed on. Cultural transmission. The process through which cultural elements in the form of attitudes, values, beliefs, and behavioral scripts are passed on to and taught to individuals and groups. There are three basic ways in which culture is learned: observation, listening, and asking questions. Enculturation, the process by which a child acquires his or her own culture. The importance of teachers developing cultural responsive practices, facilitating brain processing. Previous studies have found that drawing from students' cultural knowledge and norms contributes favorably to reading comprehension and mathematical thinking. According to neuroscience research, this is partly because everyone learns new information best when it is linked to what they already know. In other words, using texts, materials, and examples that draw from students' cultural schemas and background knowledge makes learning easier because it leverages students' existing neural pathways. But that's not all. We also know from neuroscience research that culture drives how brains process information. For instance, students who share strong oral traditions are primed to learn new information best through music and storytelling. For this reason, when culturally responsive teachers use repetition, rhythm, movement, and visuals during instruction, they are also strengthening neural pathways for comprehension. Cultivating critical thinking and problem solving skills. Research on culturally responsive teachers reveals that beyond foregrounding students' culture in the classroom, these teachers build students' awareness of social justice issues encountered in their daily lives and communities through rigorous project-based activities. For example, one case study of 7th and 8th grade math classrooms. Atlantic students use traffic stop data to understand racial profiling in their community and gain a stronger understanding of math concepts. A second case study describes the efforts of a group of students to investigate zoning laws in their community. These students presented their research to the state senate and local city council, which led to the closure of 2 liquor stores near their school. Researchers believe that engaging students in investigations of meaningful, open ended problems is an ideal way to get students to analyze, formulate questions, and generate solutions to challenging authentic problems. Motivating and engaging students. Culturally responsive teachers connect academic concepts to everyday lives of their students, a strategy that makes learning experiences more personally meaningful, engaging, and effective. Research backed this idea. For instance, in one study, roughly 1,400 San Francisco high school students, researchers discovered that participating in an ethnic studies course that emphasized cultural affirmation was associated with improved attendance as well as GPA gains. In a related but smaller scale study, researchers gathered the reflections of 6 Black students who participated in a culturally relevant mathematics course. These students reported feeling more motivated to engage in mathematics as well as more confident in taking standardized tests. Conversely, scholars have long argued that failing to demonstrate the value of school learning on students' everyday lives contributes to the lack of motivation and engagement experienced by far too many students of color. Multicultural education is imperative to social reconciliation and cohesion of our nation. What is multicultural education? It is a form of education that introduces students to various cultural backgrounds. Multicultural education seeks to create equal educational opportunities to all students, including those from different racial, ethnic, and social class groups. Introduction. The implementation of multicultural education and bilingual education attempts to solve the problem of language and racial discrimination in education. However, problems related to cultural diversity are still occurring nowadays and are much more complex and problematic than decades ago. Hence, multicultural education is more crucial than ever in breaking down stereotypes, intolerance, and bullying within schools, ensuring everyone feels welcomed and included in their society. Number 1. Assist cultural groups in feeling included and therefore feeling they belong in the school community. It has been raised up that certain cultural groups are being underrepresented in school curriculums and textbooks, and this issue was observed across secondary and tertiary education. People from certain ethnic backgrounds should not have to feel marginalized or unwelcomed in their own society. Therefore, contents of textbooks and other educational related materials should be relevant to all cultural backgrounds. Number 2, gain accurate representation and knowledge of cultural groups. The problem with cultural groups being underrepresented and marginalized is also associated with the misrepresentation of their culture in textbooks. Knowledge taught in school should be more neutral and objective so that students can receive correct information on cultural groups by people of that culture that they are not familiar with. Some students may not be fully familiar with their own cultural group as well as such students who grew up in one place but have different ethnic backgrounds. Number 3, mindset of critical thinking on current social issues surrounding cultural diversity. The biggest takeaway from education for a student should not only be restricted to textbook knowledge, but also how they can incorporate it in their own experiences and their current reality. Multicultural education allows students to hone their critical thinking skills on topics surrounding cultural and social issues, including institutional racism, classism, sexism, ableism, ageism, homophobia. For instance, multicultural curriculum may include the history of African Americans and what they had been through from slavery to civil rights movements of the 1960s to present with the Black Lives Matter movement, and the disproportionate incarceration of young black men. Students can understand the historical continuum of social issues as they are still happening today. Textbook knowledge may be essential in terms of examinations, graduation, and obtaining scholarships, but more importantly, information, regardless of its form, needs to transfer into schematic knowledge systems and be applied to life so students can become change agents, apply knowledge to reality to make a change in society.